Well, welcome to yet another Mastermind with yours truly, Professor Johanna Sophia of Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching, and the Super Happy Body course, and the newly founded online rawsomelife.com, rawsomelifeglobal.com online university. Today, we're talking about something that has been kind of popping up from all sides of society, from all angles, from all avenues of political convictions and thinkers and endless warriors, I suppose, too, people who worry all the time. But there seems to be quite evidently some truth to the fact that big changes are happening in the world of money. And we have all heard about that the physical money is supposed to vanish. That's why the title, The Vanishing Money, of this mastermind. And instead, we will have, I said, numbers and symbols and QR codes on our phones or other devices, or implanted in our hand or in our brain, if we submit to such alterations of our physical body, so that the entire monetary system is planned to change. And of course, those who plan have particular agendas in mind. And I wanted to look at what actually has been and is money, and how does it impact our health, and that whole play between health and money and health, and how dependent our health in the Western world in particular, no, actually in the entire world, is on the monetary schemes that are going on everywhere. Because as the good old saying goes, money runs the world, right? So money runs our health. And how can we evolve from the submission to that being run by the powers that be, and empower ourselves to get to healing? The last mastermind I did was called Self-Healing for Cheap. It kind of went in the same direction, but I did not much lay out the bigger picture of what is happening with money and what money is. I think this opportunity where this big change is happening toward digitalization, toward everything being digital, in terms of what we have and what our history is and what our degrees are and how many kids we have and what our ancestry is and how much money we make and what political persuasion we have, and whether we are good citizens and fit into the demands of the respective powers that be, and therefore can operate more or less with that digital money that can also be just wiped out. And that is not to say that this is a new thing. And actually, that's what I wanted to point out. Many people are talking about, oh my God, we've always had money, and then it can suddenly be wiped out. The fact that money has always been fictitious is something that we're not really aware of, because we've been taught that money is just the counter value for something that is actually in the bank or in the gold or in the other value items that are stored somewhere. Welcome, Joan. Say hello. We've just started. So I wanted to explore that a little bit, what money actually is and why it was possible and how it was possible to take over the ruling of the world. So why it got to the point that money runs the world. Of course, originally an invention of a piece of paper, an IOU, instead of gold coins or other such items that actually in and of themselves had value, or to represent that this building or this item is now not mine anymore, but yours, shows us that, of course, the printing of an IOU or a certificate of ownership is also very, very old and an old concept. And yet it had never really extended to our bodies, our health. And that is a new phenomenon, of course, of the 20th century, that the industries developed in such a manner, and some of you may be familiar with the fact that a few large industrialists sat together in 1910, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Mellon, Morgans, and a couple of others sat together. Carnegie, I think, was also in that group, sat together and said, okay, we own all this oil. What can we do with it? And the decision was, we want to do everything with it. In fact, at the time, these 5-6 families owned 50% of the world's wealth, because they owned the railroads and the oil mining and the coal mining and of course, the steel companies, etc. And at that time, they figured, well, if we can make materials like plastics, and the first plastics would evolve, we can make furnishings, we can build buildings, we can build containers of all kinds. Can we make food? And that did not quite work at the time. But can we make medicine? Yes, we can, because we've developed poison gases, also on the basis of oil and gas out of the ground. And we know that those substances that we've created, you know, the First World War was imminent. We can make medicine because we can have these killer gases and killer substances that we have developed that do not occur like this in nature. So, and that is not to say that there haven't been poisons used as medicines beforehand. I learned not so long ago that mercury was used as a cure for syphilis or for other severe inflammatory diseases, mercury and arsenic. So those substances that occur naturally in the world that we can find had already been used as medicine in the world. So we see at that time, 110, 115 years ago, the first concepts of the pharmaceutical world, what became the pharmaceutical world of medicine, the allopathic avenue. And they decided at that time that all natural modalities of healing would be eliminated, would be called hoaxes, would be driven out of town as snake oil, fake people, and therefore the only acceptable medicine to create health would be made out of this oil. Now, as if this were not enough to own the health industry, the next thought inevitably must be that when you live in a money-driven world, we also call that capitalism, then we want to have control over as much sales as possible, right? So we want to keep selling the products that we're making. We don't just want to give somebody one little bottle of medicine and after that they're cured and never have to come back, because that's not a good business model. So at the same time, the system develops that a cured patient is a lost customer. So we have this concept as of that period of time that as a doctor, if I am a doctor, I will want to keep my patients coming back regularly and have more and different ailments and diseases that I can prescribe medicines for and I can service, right? It's like a car is not supposed to be running for 50 years without breaking down, because there would be no business in the car repair and car servicing industries. So our bodies have become this product, or our illnesses have become the product that is necessary for the medical industry to operate. And because that has become the #1 profit-making industry in the world. Why do I know this? Because in the 1990s and early 2000s until 2008, actually for 16 years, I worked for an international law firm and translated lots and lots of documents and patents and deals and international communications between governments and corporations with each other. And it often included statistics. So the #1 profit-making, the highest profit margin garnering industry was already then the pharmaceutical industry, right next to or sometimes even above weapons. Weapons, of course, are the second, and depending on the time period, the first and most profit garnering industries in America. So we've had this realization, if we so decided to have this realization, that our health is driven by a profit-making industry, and that industry became the largest industry on the planet, so much so that more and more disease has to be created so that it can be serviced. And you get to a point where that doesn't expand anymore. Oh dear, our 5th booster is not being taken up. What now? Now, I know that I'm going out on thin ice here with these statements, but it's all just simple logic and just simple fact, right? When an industry is based on expansion and we must make more and more money for our shareholders, then that is what drives us. And the mechanisms by which those monies are earned are driven by that motives, or are designed to feed those motives. Okay, now we want to look at what happened to the financial industry because of this incredible expansion, and of course not just in the health industry. In all industries, we have expanded to such an extent that the planet cannot hold further expansion. And I should not forget that I also translated lots and lots of documents pertaining to derivatives and futures and the sales of debt And of course, our entire monetary system is based in debt. I think most people know that today, that money is a debt certificate, right? And when somebody owns a lot of property, somebody else must be in debt for the same amount. When somebody owns or has as an asset $2 million, there must be other people that are indebted for $2 million. And of course, it spreads over people. So if we want to increase this system again and again and again, we get into a deadlock where the pyramid crumbles and we have to crush it and start over. And we are, so many people believe, at one of those points where we need to crash and crush the existing situation so that we can start over. And that's how the digital system gets its opportunity to fill that new start. And of course, my thought is, as long as we stay in the same system, this will always happen. And when you look back over time, you see that every decade, there is a different financial crash in the Western world, certainly. But what does this all have to do with health? Of course, apart from the fact that health has become an industry that is the second largest industry in the US and in many Western countries. And if we really do want to be healthy, because our money is being reduced and there's going to be less value in it. So, and of course, if we do not want to be chipped, that may even carry more punishment, if you will, in terms of the monetary the availability of money, the assignment of money, so that we then have even less ability to look after ourselves in terms of staying healthy. So I want to talk about what we can do to weather this whole storm and get through it and possibly create more awareness of how we can truly heal our bodies and how we can truly actually have a life with less dependency on that whole system. So health with little money or no money is, of course, easily achievable if we have access to nature, if we have access to plant foods. And that we have to be careful to set up in such a manner that we have that access, whether we have our own backyard, whether we grow sprouts or little beets in our, look at this, these are beet tops in our own windowsills, or whether we have to go to stores, or whether we make agreements with farmers, with local farmers, organic farmers, of course, and see that we get supplies that are not impacted by the monetary system doing its thing until it rebalances. Now, do I think that everybody will go for this new system? I think not. I think there's a large part of the population that will say no. And therefore, there is a great opportunity to offer new ways of doing exchanges, doing bartering, or, as you know, if they can print money, I say, why don't we print our own money in the communities we're in? And some communities, of course, have started that. Why don't we create a system that we want to have? And let me quickly still talk about a couple of people I know who have done so. There's a village just upstream from me on the Hudson that has developed a currency. I think they've even called it a Hudson. So you can have your own little printed paper money for that village, and certain stores, and maybe a mason and a carpenter and a plumber, etc., all participate, and already you have a system of exchange that is independent. Now, there's lots of other issues that come with such new ways of doing things, because it still does not get you out of taxes, right? Every piece of land we own is taxed. Every piece of earth or real estate we own is taxed. And that brings into question the whole notion of ownership and how that should be reconfigured in a future society that would be less exploiting, that would be less greedy, let's put it that way, and therefore would not have to crash once a decade. So there's a lot happening at this particular time, and I wanted to make you all aware in terms of inventing new systems. Of course, my favorite new system is the gradido, the thank you money that a German gentleman has worked out over the last 20 years, and now there's thousands of people exploring all the ways it can be implemented and used. It's called the gradido, and I would love to see if using the internet, as long as we can use it freely, to also create online communities that do that work with each other and exchange with each other in new ways. Now, of course, we all still have to live in the existing world. We all still have to pay our mortgage, our rent, our whatever we are committed to, our car, our fuel, our electricity, whichever we're using, right? Because if we want to stay alive, we have to function in the existing system. But that doesn't prevent us from, at the same time, creating a new system. And that works in the monetary system as well as in the health system. Coming out of the monetary system, having one foot in there, we can still say, but I am now no longer the pawn of my medical practitioners. I want to actually take care of my own body. I want to actually learn to self-heal. And of course, that is also where those of us who have done that with our own research and energy have done it with our own body. I myself really learned how to do it better when I had a stroke now almost 30 years, no, 20 years ago, not 30, 20 years ago. I was 50 and then switched to a very high raw food diet, high percentage, meaning 90% raw. And I'm sorry, my hair is falling apart and it's bothering. So whatever. So yeah, we can sometimes, when we have a very dire situation, make that step into, okay, I don't need to be dependent on the medical industry. I can do this for myself. I can create a lifestyle that creates a body that is very healthy. The last mastermind, I talked a lot about how biology works on planet Earth and how biology, of course, works in this here body, in every body, and in every body's body. And therefore, we can realize that we have that ability. And we can realize that we can learn from others how to do that happily and deliciously. So when I say, come study with me, then I know that you can achieve something that is incredibly successful. Although there are persons for whom it is difficult to give up the dependency, for whom it is difficult to give up also the victim mode. Oh, society is doing this to me because I am a woman, because I am different, because I am, and so forth. There's lots of reasons why we can perceive ourselves as victims. And I used to say with friends of mine who, I used to say with a smile on my face, yeah, you just love your diseases so much. There is an infatuation with this, I am so sick, I have to take these 5, 10, 20 pills every day and see my doctor regularly because, I have such bad luck, I am so sick, or whatever, something happened to me, or I did something at one point and so forth. So I remain the victim. Stepping out of that is very difficult for many people. And of course, we all fall back into it for moments in many situations that happen to us, however healthy we are, right? I mean, for me, the last time I actually was down with a disease or with I call it exhaustion flu, was after I traveled extensively. And of course, I don't do all the whatever requirements that they had before. They had just eased up on the requirements. So I traveled to Europe, and it was just a very intense travel. And of course, we're exposed to a lot of stuff. And I'm not just saying we're exposed to shedding and other people, but we are also exposed to enormous amounts of electromagnetic fields. And that is, of course, the next level of science and understanding of science, that everything is electric or everything is energy, right? So I turn that around and say, okay, yes, I am impacted, and I didn't pay enough attention of how much I'm impacted because I was so busy doing so many things outside of my personal body and its concerns, that I did not empower myself sufficiently to build up my electromagnetic field and my energy to have this shield or this broadcast that I can actually create. And that is something else that I love to teach and would love to help you with, that when we understand or begin to understand, there's no fully understanding anything, because there's just, the more you know how little you know, that kind of understanding. But the more we understand that we can have this incredible power to broadcast, to understand, if I put this in my body, it will be good. If I put this in my body, well, not so good. If I do this kind of breathing, it will help my circulation. If I do this movement, and if I show up in this world with my mission, with my purpose, it will be a very different energetic field, and it will actually propel me into that next era where I can create the new world the way I think it should be, as opposed to where I have to defend myself against all this onslaught of terrible stuff. That pose in and of itself, of course, again, turns us into a victim. If I say, oh my God, they're going to do this to us, they're going to do that to us, that does not empower me. If I say, yeah, I'm aware they're trying to do this, however, I am stronger. I know how to deal, or I will find out how to deal. That is my position. It's not that I know everything and that I can everything, but I will make a very concerted effort to always learn more as to how I can and can do more. And it starts right here with our body. So bringing it back home and very simple, we can learn to be more self-sustaining with our food and our health. And I have a 2-month course that I teach, Learn to be more self-sustaining. And we can also learn to really, really grow into that purpose and be among the people who are creating a different world, a different societal structure, a different exchange of value, a different understanding of ownership. I mean, we've already understood that it's not such a good idea to own people, right? And, there was such a good explanation. So we believe in the free market system, which of course, 200 years ago still allowed slavery, right? Because that was a market item, other humans to be traded. And of course, we still have that with child trafficking in today's world. And somebody who said, I don't think you should do that, would interfere with the free market system. Eye-popping. Yes, so there are new values have to be established. Well, morals is to me a difficult word because it's so often so superficial, right? But this deep morality that all humans are created equal. All humans have equal value to the existence to the whole of humanity, to the planet, even if they're not contributing because they may be special needs or they may be non-productive in what others, or in comparison to what others can do. So when we get to that understanding, or we move toward that understanding, then we also have an easier time to move toward nature is here to feed us, to heal us, to be the material to build with, to provide us with the inspiration for creation, for art, for beauty. It's all here. If only we got away from the concept of, yeah, but you can't have it because I own it. So there's a lot to be learned. And the same is true for health. When we depend on the currently called conventional system, we allow ourselves to be owned by it because we are providing the product, our diseases. So let us all step out of that modality, step out of the submission and the victim situation, and begin and use this opportunity where the money is having this big transition to say, okay, we are doing our own big transition, because some transition has to happen because the money system is collapsing. All the funds that are in all the social funds, whether it's social security or pension funds all over Europe, all over the US, etc. And even banks are actually in default and so deeply indebted that there's no way we can get the trillions and trillions of dollars back from anywhere, even if we exploit millions and millions of people and children in the Congo and elsewhere to do for pennies. the stuff that we then sell for thousands, it is not going to make up for the incredible debt that we have created. So just to put that out there in your consciousness, this is a wonderful moment to step into our power and to say, we don't need that system anymore. We are now wise enough, we are intelligent enough, we are understanding enough, mature enough to not need that competitive system, but we can enter into a contributory system. We can contribute to each other and help each other heal, help each other have the happiest, fulfilled life that we all desire. So I'm not saying it's going to be utopia, but it can be pretty awesome. It can be pretty awesome when we learn to self-heal and collaborate with others who are on a similar path. Now, I have spoken long enough. I would like to hear from my participants here what resonated with you and what maybe you thought something was completely out of whack. Please give me some thoughts. I know, Shirley, you have a lot to say about this. And Ed, what are your thoughts? And Joan, I would love to hear your thoughts. And Deborah, who's probably listening from afar, because she's no longer in front of her camera. Thomas, I don't know which Thomas you are. If you don't want to speak, okay, somebody was typing. Okay, Ed is not a bot. Good to know, Ed. You have not transformed into a bot. Sorry, I'm very interested and appreciate that you are doing this. I didn't know how this would be structured and timing for me. Please don't take offense. I have to leave because of an unexpected interruption and have to leave, but we'll really want the recording. Okay, so the text repeats itself, it seems, or parts thereof. Yes, the recording will be on my YouTube channel, Johanna's Raw Foods, I think, yes. I have too many channels and things. All right, yes. So if I'm not getting any questions, then I'm going to talk some more, but I never run out of words, but I would love your take. I would love to hear what resonates with you, what you think. Joan is just texting me and says, what about using cash? Yes, of course. Unfortunately, when the regular cash gets banned, or there's nobody printing it anymore, then you're still in the situation, because the cash, of course, is run by the major banks. And yeah, I just heard another talk again that the World Bank has gone completely awry. And the bank of all banks, I think Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about it, yes, is fully aware that the system as it is cannot hold. So since even regular cash is part of that same system, you still have to get the cash from somewhere, out of the bank, out of the ATM machine, or from somebody else who happens to have some cash under their mattress. But that's not going to suffice to buy a house or to etc. So we have to think new ways of doing things. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I don't know whether it will happen yet. In fact, I think the crash might not even be as severe as is announced. However, a lot of people, especially the middle class, will get a lot poorer because we're the ones where it's easy to siphon off money. And I mean, I just heard on another broadcast, I think it was on Redacted, that it already is happening, that people are missing money from their bank accounts. So if you want to go and take out some cash to go and have some legal tender in cash, and there isn't any available, ironically, it was the same day that I went to an ATM machine to put money in, but the ATM just was not working. Now, that may be coincidence, of course, as all of it, but it was ironic that it was the same day that I was just hearing this from all over the Western world, that people have been unable to take money out of their bank account, or realized there was less in their account than they knew to be there yesterday or a week ago. So there are already these things are happening. Credit cards are being cut in terms of their limit. That already happened 2 years ago, or it started. So of course, it will be eased in various ways, and excuses will be had in various ways. So I'm just saying, let's work together in a manner that has a foot in both worlds, where we know how the old system runs, and we say at the same time we're building a new system so that we can then switch over if and when this one crashes completely. It could be that it doesn't, that it just crashes a little bit and comes back and has another run at it for another couple of 100 years. That is very possible in my understanding. And yet, so many people around the globe are now saying, this is just not right, because so many more people are aware, especially since what we have lived through the last 3 years now almost. And of course, those 3 years also had a lot to do with the fact that money was running out and a crash was imminent, and putting people out of work and closing their shops, etc., created a different financial landscape globally. So when we're aware of all of that, those are all stepping stones toward the new system, and stepping stones out of the old system, which is about to totally fail. Yeah. So cash, yes, as long as we still have some, it's a good idea to use some, and at the same time, create systems or join systems where people are trying something new. And it's, you know, it's not going to be the perfect thing, but we can start doing things in a different way. Same as we're starting to do health in a different way, right? Same as we're realizing that the veggie juices and veggie smoothies and so many very simple modalities, you know, eating sprout salads where the sprouts grow on our own windowsills. If we don't have a garden, of course, if we do have a garden, you know, planting some simple crops, like, you know, I can only claim that I planted a sweet potato, which grew a whole huge patch of sweet potato leaves that are very delicious in salads and smoothies. So, and I want to do more of that in the future, of course. Yeah. Everybody with more awareness can do more, and I'm happy to teach all kinds of modalities to self-heal without the traditional system. And sometimes, you know, we've already gone through the traditional system, like a client of mine who had just had cancer and a hysterectomy, and then came, and still the body is so capable of rebuilding health, and who's now, you know, climbing mountains again and very happily, healthily living, where if she had continued on the same system path, it would have been over in a couple of years. So even after some severe impact that we've suffered from the regular system, or the lack of healing through the modalities offered in the regular system, we can still bring our biology back. That's the beautiful thing of biology on planet Earth. And that is not to say that we can live 500 years, but we can certainly live the 120 that we should live, happily, healthily, walking, standing, talking, breathing, hearing, smelling, and seeing, and all the modalities that we love to enjoy and that we call a good life, right? So yes, to round up the cash discussion, yes, absolutely, use cash wherever you can, because it avoids total grip of the QR codes over everything. Yeah, however, like I said, we cannot stop the fact that the banks are bankrupt. We can't, even if we use all the cash we want, we can't turn that around. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how much impact we can have. But of course, every person counts, and every person counts toward creating a new system, simply by saying, okay, no, I'm not going to take this chemotherapy. I'm going to heal myself. I'm not going to take this whatever medicine that I'm told I need to take for the rest of my life for diabetes, because I'm going to heal myself. Or I'm going to work with people like Johanna, who can actually help me get out of the chronic disease that is supposed to be chronic, but that is totally reversible. So that's my mission, and finding that opportunity in a crisis situation is always what happens. Change happens because of crises and because of the old system loosening and faltering, and a new system can arise from it. So I think that's the way the cookie crumbles, because life works in cycles, and there are lots of philosophical explanations as to why, but the more we are aware, the more we can find our new path. So join me, join Johanna's Raw Foods, contact with me, contact everybody in your neighborhood, in your regional area who has to do something with organic growing, with alternative healing modalities. And yeah, make sure that you don't fall for the ruses, and there will be more ruses. Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about the mind control levels that propaganda has gotten to. Yeah, so all of that is going on, but the people who are trying to do mind control have themselves a very vulnerable mind too. So we forget that they're just humans, and often not more intelligent, often less intelligent than you and I. So therefore, again, empowering ourselves and doing what we consider the next level of living is what makes the old system obsolete. All right. Can I have one more final question? No? I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Hello, Joanna.
Yes, Shirley.
Yes. Have you encountered any osteoporosis? Now, I found out that taking calcium perhaps is not good for you. I mean, calcium too. And then, well, you perhaps have gotten off with all dairy. I gave up all dairy 70 years ago. And perhaps I caused myself, osteoporosis.
Yeah, well, osteoporosis has to do with calcium, but also with hormones.
Yes, hormones, and I was put on thyroid.
Yes, so there you go. Unfortunately, and again, because I worked at the law firm, I came across a lawsuit that was filed by people who were given hormone replacement drugs for whatever reason, whether it was thyroid or whether it was menopause, etc. And the lawsuit was that they filed because they had as side effect osteoporosis and other degenerative bone and tooth tissue issues. So yes, it's very real that especially hormone replacement medications, as they may be called, are actually destructive to the bone structure and in our human body, and skin and all of the other soft tissues, as they're all called, are also affected. What you can do, however, is you can increase your leafy green plus omega-3 intake. So, and I want to refer to Dr. Brooke Goldner here, who does a wonderful program using cruciferous greens as the main part in a smoothie. And then you add a little bit of fruit to your liking, bananas, mangoes, pineapple, papaya, whichever, you please. Berries are very good, of course. And a couple of spoons of flax seeds or chia seeds. Of course, your smoothie gets kind of thick, but you get all the fiber and you get all the calcium, and your body can create healthy cell tissue because of the omega-3s. And that's what I talked about a lot last Mastermind. And please, everybody, go back to that if you want to hear more about that. Cell reproduction requires especially essential fatty acids and especially omega-3s. And of course, if we were eating watermelon with their seeds in them and all the fruits, including the seeds, we would have plenty, but we take out the seeds or we grow the plants so that they don't produce seeds. For example, grapes and all the citrus fruits, right? So we're missing those elements. That's what I would say for osteoporosis. Again, very high green, and then of course, breathing and the right exercises so that our body is trained to be more upright. I have a crooked back and I have a lot of issues, but they're not issues because I'm fine with my body. I love my body. I just make sure that I strengthen it all the time. And strengthening the back in particular to be upright allows the organs to function better, allows the organs to distribute all the nutrients better, and therefore, again, helps your bone tissue to even get the nutrients that you're maybe putting into your mouth, but that are not getting there because of not enough movement or breathing, oxygen disbursements all over the body. But yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that separately, Shirley, if you want. Did somebody tell you had osteoporosis?
Well, I finally had a DEXA scan, and I've been eating for 70 years.
I know.
Cruciferous, and cruciferous can be bad for the thyroid. I've done that research.
Yeah.
And also some types of beet greens and beets, oxalates. I've done this research.
Well, that's a new fad. It's just like fat is bad. You know, there are certain fats that are bad. The new thing is oxalates are bad for you. And I don't know, I get a little frustrated with these, you know. Yes, you need to drink your glass of milk to get the calcium. It's one of those, you know, the milk and the calcium in the milk is good for the calf and the cow, to become a cow rather, or a steer or a bull. And the same is true for the oxalates. You know, the oxalates that come in organic good food are not going to be a problem for your system if all the other parts of your life are in place. And you want to get to 110 at least, Shirley, because you are beautiful and strong, and, you know, I know you will. So for you, it is much more important to do the breathing. And again, I recommend the Wim Hof breathing method, but we can, like I said, we can talk about this separately so that the distribution throughout your body happens. And of course, you know, the movement, I don't know what kind of movement exercises you do.
Well, I was shot with pesticides when I was a child.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And became paralyzed. So that I was told I would never run or walk again, and had to lay.
Yeah.
Well, I made up my mind. I am going to walk, and I did that. But of course, at that time, I didn't have the best food either, because it was during the Depression. And
yes, and that again, that proves that it's all possible.
yes,
And
but you need the food and to change your food habits. Well, I perhaps all that raw food can be difficult for a lot of people because they chew too fast.
yeah, I think that's all ultimately irrelevant, because you know, like Brian Clement says, Dr. Brian Clement, 11 million species on the planet all eat raw food. Many of them swallow the stuff whole and their stomach breaks it down. And we are the only ones that don't know how to feed ourselves, right? So, and it could be so simple. It's
Doctor, did you remember Dr. Fletcher? You said you have to have 32 chews.
Yeah, but again, that's yet another fad. You know, nobody has time to do 32 chews. That's ridiculous. Yes. No animal has time to do that, other than the ruminators, who actually, you know, bring food back up from the stomach and then rechew it. But we don't. In fact, we consider it not so healthy when we have reflux. It's not a pleasant thing for us. So no, we're not ruminators. We do not need to chew 33 times per bite. You know, I mean, there's just so many concepts out there that don't make any sense, because somebody invented them and made a splash with them and invented or whatever, a medication, or wrote a book about it, or yeah, I just don't go for those.
Well, if we don't chew, if we just swallow it, as you get older, you can choke. So you need to chew it some to get have the enzymes, the proper enzymes in your mouth.
Well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you know, if you don't have perfect teeth, you have machines, you have knives, you have forks, you have, you know, you have all sorts of things to help you break stuff down. That's what we do when we make smoothies, right? We use basically a knife to chop the stuff into very, very small parts. And to me, that all works. You know, that's why we are humans. We are creative. We can, of course, also just go out and eat the whole apple and the whole, whatever, mango, papaya, etc., and live off that, or pull the roots out of the ground and chew them like that. But that would take most of our day to come up with the foods that would be necessary for our maintenance and growth and longevity. So yeah, we have to find creative ways. And of course, we also love flavors and we love beauty. We make beautiful dishes, we make them look pretty, etc. So all of the above is what makes us humans. Creativity is what makes us humans.
Yes, I making it beautiful, and also using all of our senses to appreciate the food.
Exactly, making our senses appreciate the food, and that's your taste, your vision, your smell, right?
Yes.
And sometimes also when you eat food with your hands, depending on what it is, you know, when we eat, of course, fruit and hold it in our hands, that too is a wonderful experience. Or, you know, many cultures eat with their hands, and I've had the pleasure of partaking in those modalities. It's a beautiful ceremonial experience. So,
Exactly.
so yes, Shirley, I'm happy to have a separate conversation with you, especially regarding osteoporosis, because yes, it is a very important issue, ironically, mostly in the Western world, and has, of course, its causes, but it also is miraculous how we can overcome these issues. From diabetes to osteoporosis, via arthritis, via all the other issues, cancers, allergies, et cetera, migraines, backaches, belly aches, IBS, etc. All of them can be reversed. And I'm not saying that you're going to be the strongest, you know, because it's not about competition. It's about making this body you have work wonderfully for what you need and want to do in life.
Against yourself, to measure yourself, not saying that you are better than anyone else. You just compare yourself as you move forward with steps. Now,
well, you may know that my mantra is we need to transition from competition to contribution in all of society. And that, again, you know, is the changeover of the monetary system and the changeover of our healing ourselves go hand in hand with that concept, transitioning from competition to contribution in all of life. And maybe I can end it here, and it will be interesting to see how the monetary system, the vanishing money, develops, and what we come up with to use the moment to birth new concepts and new ways of being with each other and being with our body, with our health.
Yes, I think you should be writing an article or a book about your new system and policy.
Yes, I agree, and it's in the works, as are so many other things. First, I want to help more people individually and create the university, or get the university to open. And lots of love to all of you guys. It has been my pleasure having you here, and let me know later in the comments, please, what you think about what's being discussed here and how you think you can participate as well. Ciao.
Ciao, you said?
Ciao, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Talk to you later. Sweeties are in love with everybody in the world. and they like to give the prizes, the Nobel prizes, to every contribution. And
Mhm.
maybe you'll receive a Nobel Prize.
That's not my goal.
No.
Mwah.
Hey,
No.
oh,